Right, sorry for the slight delay, some technical issues there. Welcome to the meeting. I'm Councillor Steele and I'll be chairing today's subcommittee. Please be advised that this meeting is being live streamed on the Council's YouTube channel. To my right are the planning officers and the council solicitor, and to my left is the committee manager. Also within the meeting room are the committee members who are all present except for Councillor Scow, who is attending the meeting via Zoom. Arrangements for dealing with planning applications. An officer's summary and update will be given. Speakers are restricted to 3 minutes with a warning when 30 seconds remain. Members are to note the information given by officers. Any decision proposed which is contrary to the recommendation contained in the report will require reasons if the proposal is to refuse and reasons and conditions if the proposal is to approve the application. To avoid any disruption to the meeting, please ensure mobile phones are switched on to silent, and whilst you are not speaking, please put your microphone on mute if you've not already done so. Fire procedure. If the fire alarm sounds, you will be directed where to go. Please follow the instruction given by officers, and as you can clearly see, there are 2 fire exits adjacent. So, declarations of pecuniary and non-pecuniary interest. Councillor Dennis.
Thank you, Chair. I have a non-pecuniary interest in items 4, on which I attended the organised site visit, and number 6. And on neither occasion did I express an opinion.
Thank you. Councillor Lee.
Just to say, I think like all members of the committee, I believe, received communications on item number 6 with many photos and videos.
Thank you. Councillor Tucker.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chairman. Like Councillor Lee, I received numerous videos regarding item 6. Unfortunately, I was unable to attend the formal site visit on item 4, so I undertook a private visit on Friday to have a look at the application. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Winter.
Yeah, I did private visits to 4, 6, 7, 10 and 11. In addition, I think we all received correspondence on item 6, and I think on item 4, I'll stand corrected on that one, there was an email from a Mr. Britton. I think we all got that one.
St John Street, Bridlington.
You.
Haven't made a note of that for a minute. Take my glasses off. Councillor Norman.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, similar with item number 6, received numerous emails and correspondence on that. Received the email on item number 4, and this morning I had a personal tour around the building on item number 4 as well, with one of the receptionists. Again, made no comments.
Thank you. And Councillor Jefferson.
Just the same as many other councillors, email item 4 and correspondence and videos item 6. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Heslop Mullins.
It's a repetition.
Yeah.
Email and 4 and visit to item 6. Not very clear. Visit to item 4. Email.
Thank you. Councillor Healy.
Yeah, emails on item 6 and 4. I also paid a private visit to item 7, Foley Avenue, Beverley, and also private visit to item 11, land east of the Adult Learning Centre in Beverley.
Thank you. I also received numerous emails regarding item number 6 and paid a visit to the organised visit to item number 4. Right, to approve as a correct record the minutes of the subcommittee held on the 16th of January 2023, moved by Councillor Lee, seconded by Councillor Winter. Withdrawals? Are there any withdrawals?
No withdrawals, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. So we turn to the first item on our agenda today, which is item number 6, change of use of land and buildings from agricultural to mixed use. And this is Worley Cross, Bridlington Road, Bransburton. Are there any updates on this one?
No updates, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. And we have 4 speakers on this. The first one is Mr. Sintler. Is Mr. Sintler with us in the room? Mr. Sintler, if you'd like to take a seat in front of the microphone. All right, Mr. Sintler, can you press the button in the middle so the red light comes on? That's it.
Yep.
You'll be given 3 minutes and a reminder when you have 30 seconds remaining. So start when you're ready.
Good afternoon. I'm the proprietor of the adjacent property and I object to this planning application. Whalley Cross is a rural location and is outside of the identified development limits. Churchill House and the associated land and outbuildings were used by the previous owners for almost 35 years to stable and graze a handful of horses, non-commercially, mostly owned by their children. Prior to this, one of the buildings was used to keep chickens for egg production and another to house a few cattle. Please don't be misled into thinking this site has ever had anything other than very light agricultural usage. Highways have based their view on previous agricultural usage regarding access. They have not taken into account that the previous owners sold off a strip of land that has reduced the width of the access by some 3 meters. This is a significant reduction and there are now 20 million more vehicles on the UK roads. The accident report gives the impression that there has only been one minor incident on this stretch of road, when in fact this road is notorious for accidents and has seen many fatalities over the years. The business that the applicants propose to bring to the site currently advertises around 6,000 car parts for sale online, postage or collection. Therefore, the potential for vehicles visiting the site is far greater than they have stated. A noise assessment has been submitted with this application. However, I challenge this assessment regarding decibel levels of the tooling and also the location of noise receptors. No evidence exists of such measurements were taken on our property. The fire brigade have stated that in the event of a fire, they would not enter the site with their engines. Instead, they would block the main road. This would be detrimental to other emergency services that use this A road and significantly affect response times due to long detours. The Environment Agency has stated they have no concerns with the application based on the applicant's existing permit. This is an unfair assumption as the two sites are vastly different. The application is to reuse the existing buildings and to keep their appearance and character. These buildings are mostly made of corrugated asbestos or in disrepair. The work needed to make these buildings safe and comply with environmental standards to gain a permit for the site would result in the site losing its character and appearance. In conclusion, bringing a breakers yard to Whalley Cross would have a negative impact on this historical hamlet, increase the potential for traffic accidents and potentially harm the environment. All the residents and surrounding landowners have objected to this application as well as the 3 adjacent parish councils. Despite the carefully worded application, questionable reports and creative photography, we do not believe this breakers yard is suitable for this countryside location, especially when there is plenty of room on existing industrial estates more suited to this type of business. May I also remind the committee that this isn't a sustainable business. We are in a world that's moving towards zero emission vehicles. None of the parts sold are suitable for use in such vehicles. And finally, a decision today to approve the site for industrial use opens the door to all manner of industrial uses in the future and not just the applicant's business should they sell up. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sintler. And can you turn your microphone off? Thank you. Thank you. And we have Mr. Kenny, who is the applicant. Just pop your microphone on again. And the same for you, Mr. Sintler, 3 minutes, and you'll be given a reminder at 30 seconds.
Good afternoon, everyone. We are here today to offer some background behind our recent planning application for the change of use. We are a small family business and we have been trading successfully for 13 years. Since starting our company, the use of recycled car parts has highly increased and is now very much actively encouraged by the vehicle sector. We have always wanted to combine our living and working situation. It took over 4 years to find a suitable property, especially as we were both mindful that we would only feel comfortable to run a business in a location where we will not be an impact on neighbours. When we came across Whalley Cross, we were immediately struck by the fact that each of the 3 neighbouring properties all had business elements and none were purely domestic. We have the cafe next door, followed by Whalley stores, and then a bungalow which runs a caravan repair and storage company. Previous to the Whalley stores, there was historically a fuel station, a garage repair workshop and a car sales forecourt. We feel that the following the president has already been set, and so we felt comfortable and confident that our application will be legitimate. We We did not rush into this and have been very patient during the last 4 years to reach this point. It took a lengthy 9 months for our purchase to go through, and our solicitor was extremely thorough during the whole process. This is now our dream home, which we share with our family, and we'll be living here for the long term. Our application has also been backed up by the support of the Planning Department, the Highways, Environmental Agency, and Public Protection. If we do receive the change of use, then our next step is to obtain a permit with the Environmental Agency. This permit is an individual location permit, so we must emphasise that all regulations are tailored to the site that we are applying for. This is not a generic one-size-fits-all permit. The small dismantling unit that we have proposed would therefore be strictly controlled for this building. We also fully accept all the suggested restrictions as proposed by the Planning Department. As all of our work would be carried out inside of the existing buildings, visually we would have no impact. Our aim has always been to be invisible to our neighbours.
30 seconds remaining.
We would like to ask all committee members to please look at our documents titled Response to Beeford Parish Council when analysing their decision on our case. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Kenny. We also have Councillor Evison, who is one of the ward councillors. Councillor Evison, you know the ropes, so.
Thank you, and thank you, committee. I do have concerns about this application and the recommendation. Also worrying is that the 3 things I have greatest concern about have all been given the green light in this report. So that is change of use from agricultural to industry in open countryside, noise and highways. I live near Warley Cross. I know the site well, and it is a big step from a low-level agricultural use to a car breaker's yard. So I first deal with that as something that gives me a great deal of concern. It is also the main tourist route into Bridlington on the A165. We then move on to noise. Really difficult to argue against an expert's report contained in this. But I have real reservations that you can conduct or run a car breaker's yard business with noise levels that are such low level they will not impact on people living in very close proximity, and they are very close to this business. I accept that on these 2 issues I'm challenging recommendations with no proof, just, if you like, just experience as a ward councillor for quite a number of years. However, the highway is a different matter. The A165 is a busy road, especially in the tourist season, used by all manner of vehicles, many driving at considerable speed, whether they should or not. We've already seen 50-mile-an-hour speed limits introduced to try and slow traffic down. And regardless of what the report says, there have been many accidents on that road and fatalities. To consider introducing a new business which will have vehicle recovery trucks or transporters delivering cars to the site, as well as courier company deliveries, I find extremely worrying. I visited Mr. Sintler recently, and I know the area well, and found myself in a situation with fast-moving traffic behind me. I didn't have the time to see his access clearly and had to pull into the yard of the forecourt of Warley's Country Store because I just did not have time to slow down to see properly where I wanted to go. And I found that actually quite unnerving. So how transporter vehicles can safely slow down to pull into a single track access or pull away into fast moving traffic, I find a very dangerous and challenging situation. I'm supportive of business, but what I would say is I find this is worrying. So what I would say, if there's any doubt in your mind at all, then please do consider deferring for a site visit. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Evison. We also have Councillor Dewhurst, also one of the ward councillors. Councillor Dewhurst, again, you know the ropes.
Thanks very much, everyone. I don't want to take up too much more of your time. A lot of this has already been covered. Quite clearly, there's a significant strength of feeling here, as you can see in your papers from the 3 parish council responses and also the objections of local residents. Quick extra bit of flavour on the highways points that have been made. It only takes a quick internet search. If you put in Worley Cross accident, you will see 3 top stories come up about serious accidents that have happened in the last 5 years, which somehow that data doesn't feed through to the reports. I'm not blaming the officers for that. I think sometimes that data just doesn't make its way through the system. And as Councillor Everson said, the reason that the stretch of road has had its speed reduced for a good reason, because it is dangerous. The Worley Cross bit there is a brow, blind bend. It isn't the safest bit of road, particularly if you're going to move very, very large car transporters in and out onto the road. Just in terms of a change of use, clearly this is a small hamlet. It's got some small complementary businesses, country store, cafe, as was mentioned. It's open countryside all around it. Is it really an appropriate site for industrial use? And it's interesting if you look back to the strategic planning committee meeting of August last year, when we debated an asphalt plant site 1 mile down this same road. That was refused, and I quote the reasons for that from the minutes, which because it will introduce a heavy industrial process into what is intrinsically a rural countryside location, which is out of keeping for that location and for which there is no functional need. I don't see how 1 mile further up the road we should be allowing an industrial use on what is currently agricultural land, when this council refused an application for an industrial process on an already designated industrial plot literally next door. So I think that needs to food for thought, hopefully, in your discussions. As I say, I think for those reasons it can be refused. I think it is inappropriate for the location. It's open countryside. It's detrimental perhaps to the local businesses that already exist there. But I would also back up what Councillor Everson said, that if you don't feel refusal is appropriate, that certainly a site visit should be undertaken so you can understand the location better. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Dewhurst. I think I had Councillor Tucker's hand up earlier, did I? Or was that something else? No, it's all right. Councillor Dennis.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. There's obviously plenty of speakers, both for and against this application, and it's a very contentious situation. I think it really does come down to a proper site visit to be arranged. I've been past this site, but it's always been at 60 miles an hour, and I think I'd just like to stop and have a proper.
You should be doing 60. I think it's 50 limit, isn't it, in that area? Noted, Councillor Dennis. Do you have a seconder for this? Councillor Lee.
Thank you, Chair. I hope there are no police watching the YouTube channel. That's what rather keeping fingers crossed. This is a really clearly a very important application, and like many ward councillors, I'm sure we take note certainly of parish council views, which clearly there's a very strong feeling locally. We take note very often of local ward councillors who obviously are our colleagues in the council. And I must confess, I know the area quite well. I actually live just north of Driffield now, but I've used that road many, many times over the years. It is a fast road. And the concerns, I think, that have been expressed on traffic, as well as changing the use of this in an open countryside position, I think it's just too much to agree. I must confess the sensible thing, I think, for this committee to do is to go for a site visit so we can really understand, particularly the traffic thing, the traffic position, and also the proximity to the other properties close by, because I think clearly a breaker's yard, to me, I'm not sure entirely what the processes are. I know what the processes are, but I'm not sure how noisy they are. So I'd really want to see that in more detail. So I would like to second Councillor Dennis's proposal for a site visit.
Thank you, Councillor Lee. I think you're quite right. I think that really is on the cards, and unless anyone needs to speak at this stage, I think we'll go for the vote on that, if you're happy.
It's been proposed and seconded to defer this application for a site visit. All those in favour of this proposal to have a site visit, please raise your hand. And that's unanimous, site visit.
Okay, so the application's deferred now for a site visit, and it will come back to this committee the next time. Thank you. Okay, folks, are we gathered together again? Thank you. So next item is item 4. This is erection of a building and up to 15 supported living retirement apartments. And this is on St John Street in Bridlington. Do we have any updates on this one?
We do indeed, Madam Chairman. I think members may have also received this from an objector, but we have received an objection. The following issues have been raised. They've said they disagree that the building has been altered beyond all recognition, with features retained from its use as a religious building, including the front windows. They've said the applicant cites structural concerns as a reason for justification, but has not provided a structural report from a qualified engineer. Additionally, the ground soil report confirms that the ground conditions are good. They've also raised that they're disappointed that the application suggests that the building does not lend itself for conversion, as the foundations of good design often involved sensitive conversion and restoration of historic buildings. This would also allow Bridlington's history to survive and be read by future generations. They've said, taking into account the constraints on site and the Conservation Officer's response, why are we allowing the building to be demolished and replaced with a building that looks broadly the same as the existing house? The existing site rather. And the scale of the proposed scheme, they've also said, is out of keeping with the scale of other residential uses in the locality.
Thank you. We have 2 speakers on this item. Mr. Turner, who is the architect, who is on Zoom. Sorry, I didn't read that part. Mr. Turner, can you hear us and can we hear you?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can very clearly.
Marvellous.
So you have 3 minutes and you'll be given a reminder at 30 seconds.
Thank you. Following the discussions at the previous committee meeting and the subsequent site visit, I would like to comment on a couple of the points raised. Firstly, the existing buildings. The members who attended the site visit and have done private visits before or after will have seen that the existing buildings are a warren of spaces which have been built and adapted in many phases to suit the needs of the builder's merchant. There is a showroom frontage to St John Street. There is a 2-storey late 20th century extension into the car park and a 2-storey shed built against the rear boundary with bare blockwork walls facing the housing on Abbott's Way to the east. Together, these do not form an attractive group and would be entirely unsuitable for conversion. Amongst all these various structures, there are the remnants of an earlier building, a church institute that once bore a date stone of 1894. Over the years, the institute has lost the whole of its ground floor, including the entrance porch and the southern and western walls, all of its interior, and any remaining openings have been blocked up with the exception of 1 window and 2 half windows facing on St John Street. The Conservation Officer describes these alterations on page 11 of your report and concludes that there is no objection in principle to the proposed demolition of 80 to 88 St John Street for the erection of a new building. Secondly, the adjacent public house and its beer garden. This has been taken into consideration in the development of the plans, and as you will have seen, the proposed extra care apartments are arranged so that they all face away from the beer garden and the circulation spaces, so that corridors, stairs, storerooms and the like are placed between the beer garden and the proposed apartments. The windows to the new apartments will therefore be much further from the beer garden than those on the existing dwellings on Abbott's Way. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Turner. And we also have Councillor Walker to speak. Is the on Zoom again? Councillor Walker, can we hear you?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Yes.
Okay. And again, you'll have 3 minutes and a reminder at 30 seconds.
Thank you very much. I'll be brief. The Priory Church Institute building is clearly visible as a heritage asset and has certainly not been altered beyond recognition. Para 197 of the National Planning Policy Framework states, the effect of an application on the significance of a heritage asset should be taken into account. Clearly, the proposed complete demolition falls at the extreme end of an effect on a heritage asset. And that for me is the issue. I have no problem at all with the type of development proposed and would welcome the creation of homes in that location. We are probably discussing at what cost. I have seen no evidence whatsoever that the building is beyond recognition, nor that it needs to be demolished. I would argue that the opposite is the case. The incorporation of this asset into the development would maintain real character and would allow the history of Bridlington to be read by future generations. If there were two schemes, one retaining a heritage asset and one which would demolish it, which would be preferred? So, Madam Chairman, I would urge this committee to take this final opportunity to refuse the demolition and seek a development perhaps which is truly sensitive to the site and its surroundings. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Walker. I think Councillor Tucker had his hand up.
Yes, I did, Madam Chairman. A question for the officers, if I may. What we're dealing with here is just the outline planning permission at the moment. So a reserve matters application will have to come back once it all has to be approved at a later date, not state.
Through the chair, yes, it is an outline planning application. However, just for clarity, it is an outline planning permission with two matters for consideration, scale and layout. So there are, the scheme that you've seen in front of you is approximately what they're asking for. But yes, it is when all said and done outline application, so a reserve matters would have to follow.
Yes, Madam Chairman. The cynic in me, having sat on these planning committees for some time, we've seen many times when we've gone to outline and what comes back to committee is completely different. I have no problems. I'm actually going to move approval on this outline planning permission because actually, having viewed that, it is a complete mismatch of buildings, and I think it's beyond salvaging, and I think it is right for development for the purpose of throughout. What I would like to do, Madam Chairman, is if the committee decides to support me on this, is ensure that it comes back at a later stage for full reserve matters, that actually what the scene is going to be built is going to be built. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Tucker. And I had Councillor Norman.
Thank you, Chair. Quite the opposite, I'm afraid, Councillor Tucker, not surprisingly. I visited the site this morning and I had a good look round upstairs, downstairs and all the way around the back and looked at the walls, etc. And I do believe that this is a salvageable asset. I do believe it's an asset which Bridlington needs, in effect. There's, over the years, been a lot of push to pull visitors from the town centre all the way up to the old town. And in order to do that, you need things for people to see on their walk up the street, up St John's Road and all the way across to the old town. And this can certainly be one of those assets. Take away that not very nice frontage of Westies, and it does show that it is a proper old-time asset, and therefore it does need to be looked after and preserved for the future. It is an unlisted heritage asset and it needs to be preserved, as I say. The other area that I would like to call upon is parking, because there's very few parking spaces around the back. We're looking at 15 supported living retirement apartments. And I think from what I've seen, there's something like about 12 parking spaces. Additional to, of course, the people that are staying in these apartments who may well have one, possibly two vehicles each between them. And then you've got staff, you've got the potential for even ambulances, because we all know that supported living generally means people with some sort of ailment and getting on a wee bit, and they need access to ambulances and medical services. So I think that those, in addition to, of course, the lack of parking spaces within the street itself out the front, yes, it is public parking. But overnight, you will find that a vast number of these parking spaces will be used up by residents, and it'll be very difficult for anybody to park if there's excess parking needed at this new building. So I would certainly like to move refusal on this, on those grounds.
Thank you, Councillor Norman. Yes.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Madam Chairman. I agree a lot with what Councillor Norman has said. It's been a question for the officer. Is it possible for this to go back and look at the parking?
If members were minded to, yes, you could defer it back to officers and we could explore with the applicant the possibility of achieving more parking or space if that's what you wanted us to do. Yes.
Okay, can I go? I will move that then, please, Madam Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Tucker.
Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Can I just clarify a point there? Sorry, is that okay? Are you seconding the proposal? You're moving a separate proposal to refuse, but for different reasons? To defer that. Right, that's fine. Thank you.
Through the chair, can I just raise a point about that as well? Are you recommending deferral back to officers and so it'd be a delegated issue for officers to deal with?
No, defer back to us.
Madam Chairman, if I may continue. I think, I listened, Councillor Norman always speaks sense, yeah? But this, I think what we're losing sight of here, this is an outline planning permission. This is not a reserved matters. And I totally agree. And one of the things that I'll be looking for in the reserved matters application, that's why I stress would it come back here, is I'll be looking to make sure there was enough car parking to suit the properties that are being built. But I think we're losing sight of the fact this is not a reserved matters application. This is an outline planning permission.
Through the chair, can I just make another point there? Yeah, as I just explained a second ago, councillor, yes, you are right, it's an outline permission, but layout is a consideration for part of that. So parking can be considered at this stage.
Thank you. Councillor Healy.
Can I just ask officers then, in terms of the demolition, the point that's been made is that the ward councillor feel this is a salvageable asset. So if this comes back, is the question of whether this building is going to be retained potentially deferred until then, or is that a decision that needs to be made now?
Through the chair, that's really a decision that you guys are going to have to make in this instance. The reality is that what you have in front of you is a proposal to demolish the property. Now, we have put forward our recommendation. We feel that it's acceptable. If you don't agree with that, then now is the time to kind of really make that decision.
Councillor Heslop-Mullins.
I would second Councillor Norman's suggestion. I do believe that the main building of the Priory Institute is well worth saving. It is an asset to the town, and I think it should be retained for the benefit of the towns.
Okay, did we have a motion for that?
You did.
And you therefore seconding.
You were proposing it, yes.
And you're seconding.
Councillor, can I just get some clarification, if I may?
Yes, of course.
Yeah. Through the chair, of course. Now, in terms of your recommendation to refuse, Councillor Norman, you brought forward two issues, one of which is the demolition of the building. Now, I just really need some clarity, because obviously if we're expected to defend a reason for refusal, obviously we need to kind of understand the terms in which we're doing that. Now, what we've said in the report is that this building, it's a term that's been bandied around quite a lot. This building is not listed, it's not in a conservation area, so it's what is referred to as a non-designated heritage asset. Now, the test for it isn't quite as high as you would do for a designated heritage asset. For example, if you were looking to demolish a listed building. And one of the main kind of points in the NPPF is that it says where you are talking about removal of a non-designated heritage asset, you have to weigh into the consideration the public benefits of the proposal. Now, what the officers said here is that the principle of providing dwelling houses and also improving the kind of relationship with the neighbouring properties, given that the use is currently a builder's yard, are public benefits that weigh into favour to the point that we can recommend approval for it. Just for clarification, are you saying as part of your recommendation to refuse, they are not strong enough to outweigh the preservation of the non-designated heritage asset? Right.
Sorry, yes, I am, Chair. Additionally, you mentioned that it's being used as a builder's yard. That's totally untrue. It's not being used as builder's yard. It's being used as offices and storage for a care home business.
Thank you for that clarification, councillor.
Anyone else jumping in? Yes, councillor.
Question, councillor Norman, you're moving refusal based on that. What about the parking? Is that in it as well?
Yeah, there's two aspects. There's the conservation and the parking.
Right, thank you.
And I can't see how they can overcome the number of parking spaces available. I mean, one of the other aspects is that we see that there's potential for building over the entrance into the parking space. And there may well be some height restrictions over there, which could impact upon emergency vehicle access.
Can I just clarify then, as far as the parking issue is concerned, you would like to refuse on the grounds of there being a deficit in parking? Is that what you were saying? Thank you.
I'm inclined to agree with the parking deficit issue, but as regards the state of the building, I don't know whether you went on the site visit, councillor Norman, but you'll know it better than I do if you're the ward member. I have to say it was a bit of a rabbit warren round the back. It was a bit of a mishmash of things. So I'm not sure about the retention on those grounds, but that's your opinion on it.
It's an interesting argument to say mishmash of things. Certain areas are more modern than the main building.
Yeah. Councillor Rogers.
Thank you, Chair. Last time I spoke on this, and I'm still uncomfortable about demolishing that non-designated heritage asset, and that still stands. My concern, being a licensee myself, is still a connection to the pub. And although the stairwells and the communal areas are going to be at the pub side, I still can't get away from the fact that there is a pub that's been there many, many years with great trade and late night entertainment, and you're still going to put, residential in effect and assisted living, so older people who go to bed early, are not necessarily going to be, connected to that, public house. And I would hate to think that, a business that's been run for very many years, almost a builder's yard, that type of thing, that's not residential, suits that setting, would end up being forced into either closure or the downfall of their business because we've allowed something, to replace what's there already. I just think we need to really bear that in mind, and I don't think it's good enough to assume that a stairwell and some communal space between that and their living quarters is going to be enough. So whether we could factor that into it as well.
Thank you, councillor Rogers. Councillor Norman.
Sorry, Chairman. With that in mind, councillor Rogers, I think it may well be useful if it is, if the application is approved, that there is a very sturdy condition placed that they cannot complain against what the pub is doing. I know it's very difficult to, and I can say our legal expert shaking her head, but let me see.
Yeah, unfortunately, councillor Norman, that's not something that we could put. Time's up.
Councillor Lee.
I'm at a slight disadvantage. I was unable to go to the site visit, so I can't appreciate the detail of what's been discussed as much as I would have liked. But from my understanding, from what we can see today, then clearly the building is, if not in a state of disrepair, not in great condition, and therefore needs to have something done to it. So my sort of question in my own mind is the practicalities of this, that if we simply did not allow this to go ahead, and we said it's a heritage asset and it should be conserved then for, as Councillor Norman has said, the benefit of people walking in the area and going up to Old Town and Bridlington. How is that going to be actually achieved? In other words, are the current owners of the site going to basically spend money to do it up and to re-establish it as a preserved and something that people would want to go and see? My assumption would be, in a practical sense, that probably would not occur, and that therefore we would be sitting down here in a year or two or three with it in a major state of disrepair, and it would just go from what the current condition into something obviously pretty undesirable. I've minded really, and I take all the views sort of about the pub next door, and I can understand the concerns about that. It's a bit of an anomaly having a care home next to a pub. It doesn't make a lot of sense. So if I'm just wondering whether if this is an application for a straightforward property, you know, with you know, sort of a couple of houses or terraced houses, whether or that would have made any difference, I'm not sure. I'm sort of the mind really that the principle of demolishing the property, I think, is in my mind probably a sound one. And I'm quite a traditionalist at heart, so I don't say that lightly. I don't like the idea of losing heritage assets, but this is a non-designated one, and therefore there's no protection on it as such. And clearly there are a lot of buildings in Bridlington, I guess, in the same boat. And basically, and some of them are in major disrepair, and I'm sure they're not the subject of applications coming forward at the moment. But we just run the risk, I think, sometimes of losing opportunities when there are investment opportunities to, you know, to increase the value and to improve an area, and this clearly would happen. We all concur, I'm sure, on this committee, the need for, you know, housing for people who need, you know, some form of, you know, accommodation that's you know, secure for them and getting into slightly older age. That's a really good thing. And I would have thought that would be a very good use of this site. So I'm minded to second Councillor Tucker's view that we should accept this, and because we're suggesting then if we make an approval of this, that it would come back to this committee and reserve matters, and we'd be able to discuss the details of the application more specifically. And obviously the parking issue I share a significant view with. I think it does seem a bit crazy having 15 properties potentially with 12 parking spaces. It may well be that some of the residents don't have a car, and that's fine, but you know, to sell a property without any designated car space does fly in the face of policy as a rule. So with the view that we can actually have that discussion at a later date, I'm happy to second Councillor Tucker.
Thank you, Councillor Lee. Councillor Winter.
Just for clarity again, this parking, 12 spaces, will that come back under reserve matters, or is it fixed from today?
It would be fixed because unless they wanted to increase it as a matter for their own.
Right, so it will be capped at 12 if we agree, amended to approve it. That's what you're telling me.
We would have allowed 12.
Yeah, that's fine. That's answered the question. Thank you.
Councillor Rogers.
Thank you, Chair. One last, we're looking at this application today, not other non-designated or designated assets, and I still can't get away from the fact that there's a beautiful building under all that could, with a bit of imagination and some money spent, be converted into flats or something like that, which would better suit the location near the pub. And I think whatever we put there, that needs to be quite a major factor, because that pub's been there a lot of years. And to stick some, you know, associated living next to it, they're going to want some support. They're obviously, you know, without stereotyping, the older end of the generation right next to a pub. I just don't think it fits for that area. I really don't. And, you know, I think we need to be really mindful of that. This is our chance to say yes or no to something. Once the decision has been made today to approve, potentially that business is going to suffer for many years to come if it survives. The parking's an issue, and that building. I mean, I was born at the Avenue. I'm from that area of Bridlington, and I know that building very well. And it doesn't look great at the minute, but it could look great with some imagination. And I'll leave it at that.
Gemma.
Just for clarification in relation to Councillor Tucker and Councillor Lee's proposal, if you will need to call it back into committee if you want to discuss the reserve matters, it won't automatically come back.
Councillor Jefferson.
There you go.
Not wired in.
Not wired for sound.
Can you hear me if I use Councillor Norman's? Yes? Okay. I've listened to you all. Clearly, because of my little accident, I didn't get to the site visit. But you see, we have a building in Hornsey, which was an old Methodist church. And when it first came in for a planning application, they said about that, oh, wait till it comes back for reserves and all the rest of it. And we actually pushed and said, no, we don't like that. Let's actually do it all at once. Now you can't do that anymore. We've got to either say yes or no. It's as simple as that now. But you do lose control. And having listened to Councillor Rogers, who I don't always agree with, however, on this occasion, I think he's spoken an awful lot of common sense. And I think if people allow somewhere to actually get rather derelict and untidy, we tend to say, well, anything's better than that. But on this occasion, Councillor Norman said, no, actually, it's not. It could be something really good. And you will not get that just with reserved matters. You've already said, yes, this can happen. So I believe that we really need to go along with the original motion, which is to actually refuse, and we get something back in that actually says we can do this and this. So thank you, Councillor Rogers and Councillor Norman, for helping me to make my mind up. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jefferson. Right, where do I stand on this one? Having had the site visit, as I say, it just was a bit of a rabbit warren behind the facade at the front. And I appreciate, the view from the street is probably of some historic interest, but within the building itself, it seemed things had evolved over the years. That's what it looked like. So it's clearly ripe for some development. I am concerned about the nearby pub, although the suggestion is that they would not have any windows on that side, so it should reduce any potential noise. I'm also concerned about the limited number of parking bays. If these residents would like to have visitors coming, that could be very difficult, especially during the day. And it's unfortunate that we can't do this sort of half measure of bringing those sort of issues back to us. So what proposals do we have forward at the moment?
So it's been proposed and seconded to, first of all, refuse the application. And as it's been proposed and seconded to approve the application, and we would take them in that order. And we would, first of all, just go through the reasons for refusal.
Okay, thank you.
So first of all, I just want to check with the planning officers about the reasons for refusal.
Thank you, Michelle. Through the chair, I have my understanding 2 reasons for refusal here. I have the impact on the loss of the non-designated heritage assets and the fact that the public benefits do not weigh in favour to allow the loss of the non-designated heritage assets. That's the first reason I have.
Yeah, I think there's also effectively overdevelopment with it being developed over the top of the entrance to the car park as well.
Right, that's actually new. That's not what you said earlier.
No, it's the third one just now.
Right. Okay. Okay. So, well, can we come to the third one when we get there? I just want to clarify the second one first. The second one, I understand that to be the fact that there is a deficit of parking spaces that are not commensurate with the number of the units proposed. Okay. And now there's a third one that you're wanting to add, which is overdevelopment. Sorry, what was
overdevelopment? Because it's building over the entrance to the car park, so it'll look totally out of keeping with the rest of the street. Also, street scene.
My scale's part of the decision. Sorry, just to clarify, Councillor, are you saying that this scale and the overdevelopment and the sort of consumption of the width of the plot is the problem? Yeah, right. Thank you.
Sorry, Chair, can I just check that the second is happy with that third reason? Yeah.
Thank you, Gemma. Councillor Rogers.
Can we include a bit about the public house? Just in my view, it's unsuitable due to the location of that and the impact that it would have on that other business. If possible.
That's up to Councillor Norman.
I'm happy to include something on that if that can be a valid planning objection.
I think, okay, yeah, so we've got two options.
So that we've been given 4 reasons to refuse. So it's been proposed and seconded to refuse this application, overturning the officer's recommendation for those 4 reasons we've just gone through. All those in favour of this proposal to refuse the application, please raise your hands. Got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And all those against the proposal to refuse, please raise your hands. 1, 2, 3. So that motion to refuse the proposal has been carried.
We're now on, I'll give people a few minutes. Right, folks, can we move on to item 7 now? This is installation of a wood burning stove and flue and replacement by folding doors and the side of 1 Furley Avenue in Beverley. Do we have any updates on this?
No updates, Madam Chairman.
And we have 1 speaker who is Mr. Bingham, the agent. Mr. Bingham, just take a seat. If you can press the button in front of you. And you have 3 minutes. You'll be given a reminder at 30 seconds.
Thank you. Madam Chair, members of the committee, thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak on behalf of this application. We're here today due to the objection raised by the Conservation Officer for the siting of a single flue outlet on a roof slope. You'll note in the application details that the Conservation Officer states the objections as: concerns are given about the flue. It is a modern feature in such a prominent position on the inside entranceway to the former hospital site. The roof line is untouched and worries are given that this would set a precedent on the roof line for more to be added on the listed buildings in the future. As you might see by my uploaded response, this dwelling is the only unit on the development which doesn't have any flues on the roof at all, whereas all other dwellings on the site, including West House, the Grade 2 listed Old Main Hospital building, are fitted with at least 1 flue, if not more. They are all highly visible, and at least 4 are sited on the Grade 2 listed building, West House itself. The Conservation Officer suggested that the flue would be acceptable on the opposite roof face, but this is not consistent with the site conditions as I've just mentioned, and it's not acceptable to the client either. Conservation Officer further commented that the flue being a modern feature in a prominent position on this roof line would stand out and detract from the positive features of the gateway, and is so objected to for the harm to the listed building in the conservation area. Despite pressing planning for the Conservation Officer for an explanation as to why the Grade 2 listed West House can have 4 flues, dwellings directly adjacent to West House can have flues facing it, and moreover that the council themselves can erect an ultra-modern looking LED street light in front of the Grade 2 listed archway, nothing has been received. We feel that the standards are not consistent and the rules are applied a little ad hoc. So to bullet point, we're seeking a total of 1 single flue on a roof slope in the same as-built conditions as those already on the development. We're not setting a precedent as suggested, we're seeking to match it. The Conservation Officer won't accept this alleged modern feature near the Grade 2 listed archway, but seems happy that the council can cite a modern feature street light in front of it. The flue itself is on the private side of the development, not the public. The flues are not an alien feature on the development either, nor are they an alien feature adjacent to or even sited on the listed buildings. On the basis of the points I've raised, we see no reason as to why the Conservation Officer has lodged an objection, and as such would hope you would digest the points made here and agree to approve the application. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bingham. Can I just clarify something there? Because we can't see from our plans. Where is the flue? Is it on, if you like, the reverse side of the house, or is it actually on the side where the entrance is?
It would be on the elevation that faces the road, so we're next to the listed archway. We'll just bring the photo back up for you.
Okay, thank you.
Next one. It's on this elevation here, roughly above where the blank window is.
Okay,
in that
and
roof side.
just to the left there as well. the
Yes,
arch
if you go back to the
entrance
previous
is.
photo, that's the arch itself. So the road you can see is a private road, but it does serve the remainder of the former hospital development site.
And the speaker mentioned that there are such flues elsewhere on the site.
There are other flues, boiler flues, etc., on other parts of the development, but obviously we're looking at listed building consent for this listed building. So we can't really look at one listed building and say, well, that one's got this, so this one can. We have to look at the impact on this building. And we've identified this would be harmful, that there wouldn't be a public benefit to outweigh the harm. So it wouldn't be justified works to a listed building. And the Conservation Officer has offered a compromise in that if it was on the opposite roof slope behind this ridge that we're looking at now, it wouldn't obviously have the same visibility in this view, and she wouldn't object. But obviously the applicant within the right has chosen not to amend the application, and we felt we had to refuse for that reason.
Okay, thank you. I think there was mention of the fact that someone had a flue inside a chimney. But of course, that would be more expense for the applicant.
Yeah, and we don't know whether that would be a suitable proposition for this particular
For that
building.
one.
Obviously, some buildings, if there's already a chimney there, you could put a flue inside a chimney and reduce the impact. But here we don't have that option.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, Councillor Healy, I was just seeking that clarification.
Thank you. Yeah, this falls within St Mary's ward. This was originally referred here by Councillor Boynton. I've asked Councillor Boynton why that was, and the resident has approached him. Really, they wanted to put the case to this committee, as is their right to do, to discuss the impact and whether it's in keeping. So the agents had their opportunity to do that. I'm always concerned about protecting the heritage of Beverley. And this is the gateway to the former Beverley Westwood Hospital. It's a grade 2 listed building. It is in the conservation area. And when the hospital was demolished and this Foley Avenue area was developed, there was a lot of care, I think, taken at that time to ensure that what was built retained some of the original features of what was there. And what was there is historic part of Beverley. And that hospital has lots of connotations in Beverley. And that arch was a particular feature. And it was felt at the time that the retention and restoration of these buildings as much as possible would be an important way of contributing to the conservation. So I've got some concerns. But of course, one of the other things that's an issue for me as well is that there doesn't appear to have been much attempt to sort of compromise here. And I think the officers have offered a compromise situation. It's not the case that officers have said this can't have a flue. What they're saying is it can have a flue, but not on this wall and not next to this grade 2 listed arch. And they have suggested alternatives, including, I believe, encasing it within a chimney, a brick chimney, but they don't want to do that because of the cost implication. And also resiting it to the other side of the roof, where it would have less impact on the conservation area. But it seems to me that the applicant hasn't wished to enter into that sort of dialogue with officers, which is regrettable in many ways, because I think compromises can be found. And when compromises can't be found and applicants dig in and say, no, it's this or no way, no other way, often refusal is the inevitable consequence. And so my view is that I, as a ward councillor, want to see Beverley's conservation area conserved. I think that this will detract from this historic arch. I think the officers have got it right, and I would move refusal.
Thank you, Councillor Healy. Councillor Rogers.
Yeah, thank you for your chair. I know the agent's frustrations when there's other buildings with flues already on. However, I go along with the my colleagues, concerns about looking after the heritage assets of this town, and I'm more than happy to support officers' recommendations and second the proposal for refusal.
Thank you, Councillor Rogers. No other hands up, no one else to speak, then we'll go for the vote on that. Thank you.
It's been proposed and seconded to refuse this application as per the officer's recommendation for the reasons as set out within the officer's report. All those in favour of this proposal to refuse the application, please raise your hand. Unanimous, refused.
The application is refused. Thank you. So, I just wait till people have left. So we move to item 10. This is erection of a dwelling, change of use of land for siting of a static caravan for holiday use and 6 touring caravan pitches for holiday use. This is the Bluebell in Old Ellaby. Are there any updates on this?
Yes, Madam Chairman, just a couple of updates on this one. We have received a further response from the Environmental Control District Officer. They advise they have reviewed the additional information, including the proposed measures to be undertaken to ensure noise from guests will be limited, and as such, they raised no further comments to add to those already made in respect of the original application, which are in the report for you. We've also received an email from Rosemary Foster, no address given, but advising they are unable to attend at the meeting today, but wish to draw the committee's attention to the objections already raised in response to the application, and which again are reported in the agenda for you. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any speakers on this?
Yes.
Where are we?
The ancient.
Oh dear. Thank you. Right, so Mr. Edwardson. Miss Edwardson. I've been misled there. I do apologise. It happens occasionally, very occasionally. Right, Miss Edwardson, again, you have 3 minutes and you'll be given a reminder at 30 seconds.
Chair members, thank you for the opportunity to speak today. David and Shirley Diamond have run the Bluebell Inn pub in Old Ellaby for 30 years. The application seeks permission for a small 2-bedroom single-storey dwelling within the development limits of Old Ellaby. Your officers have confirmed in their report the principle of the dwelling can be supported. Officers also highlight that there is an undersupply of 2-bedroom dwellings in both Ellaby and the housing market sub-area, and this proposal will contribute to addressing that need. Planning permission is also sought for tourist accommodation comprising 6 touring caravans and 1 static caravan, plus an amenity pod on land to the rear of the public house. The tourist accommodation will support the viability and vitality of the public house, provide supplementary income and provide accommodation for anglers as there is a fishing pond on site. There are no objections from highways, environmental control, land drainage and nature conservation. Following discussions with the planning officer, the scheme has been amended to address any concerns and the application is now before you with the recommendation of approval. One letter of support states, the Bluebell is a valued part of the community for locals to get together and socialise for holding charity events, and the business should be supported. Proposals will help the pub diversify and to survive through the current rising cost crisis, and tourism generating jobs within the community and helping the surrounding local economy, and businesses should be supported. The planning officer confirms in the report that despite the concerns raised, the development would sit well within its setting, incorporating existing and new landscaping within its design and layout, and would not detract from the character and appearance of the area. Concerns have been raised by some residents, and officers conclude that the development would be acceptable in terms of its impact on amenities of neighbouring properties in accordance with the East Riding Local Plan and NPPF. English pubs are closing at an alarming rate, and this planning committee will have seen a number of other applications over the years to close and redevelop many public houses. The industry is tough, but a number of villages remain with dedicated landlords and landladies such as Shirley and David, who are determined to keep the business running as a local source of employment and community facility. It does, however, need to be viable, and this proposal will help to secure the future of the business. Thank you for your time today, and we respectfully request members support David and Shirley's application in line with your officer recommendation, please.
Thank you, Ms Edwardson. Councillor Scow.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, this is on my ward, Chair. I don't see too much wrong with this. There are some objections from residents and some support from residents. So, but the main one is the Ellaby Parish Council, and I just want to ask the officer a response to their concerns, which are two concerns mainly. They say there is no separate provision for disposal of sewage waste for the proposed dwelling. It is felt that there is insufficient capacity to cope with the additional dwelling as well as the caravans. That's one objection. If the officers could answer that one for the parish council, please.
Yep, through you, Madam Chairman, the foul drainage proposal for the application is for the all the foul drainage to connect to the main sewer in Old Ellaby, which would be the preferred and most sustainable means of drainage. And Yorkshire Water have raised no objection to the consultation in respect to the additional discharge. So we have no concerns about foul drainage from the scheme.
Right, okay, thanks, Victoria. And also they said the proposed dwelling is intended for sale, but the site is not within the local plan development area, and there is no perceived need for this dwelling in the village. How would you answer that particular objection?
Again, through you, Madam Chairman, the dwelling is within the development limit for Old Ellaby. Old Ellaby is a small settlement, but it does have a development limit, and it does fall within the local plan hierarchy as a village, which allow the policy S4 does allow for limited development in villages, usually infill up to one normally. So it would comply with policy in that regard. In terms of need, we don't have really drilled down information about need in every single village, but what we do have is a general requirement to deliver housing, and in particular smaller properties. And this is a 2-bedroom bungalow, which would be a positive contribution to the housing supply for the area. So I would consider those comments have been addressed really.
Okay, thank you, Victoria. In view of what you just said, I don't have any problems with this. We need the business in Mid-Holderness. It is a growing trade, is campsites in Mid-Holderness due to staycation, the virus, etc. It's getting more popular, so it's good for the area. And I can't move it, but I'll just see if anybody else has anything to say. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Scout. Councillor Winter.
Yeah, thank you. Just one point for clarification. This bungalow, that's independent of the pub, isn't it?
The proposal, we're not proposing that it would be limited occupation, so it could be just become a market dwelling. We don't feel there's a need to tie the two together in this case.
And the touring, the caravan business is static, will be part of the pub business. It wouldn't be separate. That is correct. And you've conditioned that, haven't you?
That's correct. There is a proposal to condition that the operation of the holiday site would be linked to the pub. Otherwise, we would have a concern about those being separated.
Yeah, thank you. On that conclusion, now we'll move approval, please.
Thank you, Councillor Rogers.
Thank you, Chair. Pubs and those sort of businesses are struggling. It's nice to see, business trying to diversify, and I have no issues with this. I think the questions that Councillor Scowls asked have been answered. The sewage isn't an issue. The surface water will be kept separate. So I'm more than happy to second the officer's recommendation for approval.
Thank you, Councillor Rogers. Councillor Norman.
Thank you, Chairman. Just a question of clarity, really. Paragraph 1.2, you say the proposed dwelling lies predominantly within the development limits. Does that mean that part of it is outside of the development limits?
I think obviously development limits are drawn on fairly large scale maps. So the lines are quite thick when you drill down closely. But I think the conclusion we made was the development limit would roughly run alongside the rear of the property, in line with the rear of the neighbours at Holderness Cottages, but perhaps the garden area maybe would be outside the development limit.
Okay, Councillor Norman. Right, no one else with a hand up. We have a move and second, do we?
Yeah. Want me to go to the vote?
Yep, we'll go to the vote.
It's been proposed and seconded to approve this application as per the officer's recommendation with the conditions as set out within the officer's report. All those in favour of this approving this proposal, please raise your hand. Unanimous, approved.
Application is approved. Thank you.
We're up to now.
It was Winter and Councillor. Oh, Councillor Winter, thank you. Just didn't write that down.
I didn't either. And I'm trying to write stuff down, but
Number 5. Yeah, good idea. Gin and tonic, please.
That's later. We have we're shutting them Monday and Tuesday, so we do our Weatherspoons night and yeah, a couple of drinks there and
You don't open on Monday, Tuesday.
we're shutting anyway. We're
How many yesterday we got?
at the end of 26th of March, our last Sunday, last day of trading.
Is it? Yeah. Who's taking it over?
We come to an agreement with the brewery there, almost buying us out type of thing.
No.
Not quite, we know who's coming in. They've
got somebody coming in.
They've got
Yeah,
somebody
but it's
they're
better,
gonna-
it's better if you take the worry off it.
can we attention, please? I know it's on that side. I am looking that way. I wasn't looking in your direction. Can we have some semblance of order, please, folks? Right, so we're moving on to the next item on the agenda, which is change of use of land to provide additional areas, etc., associated with the zoo at Sewerby Hall and Gardens. And this is a council application, I believe. which is why it's before us. Councillor Rogers. Oh, updates. Sorry, we're racing ahead now.
We haven't gotten anywhere, to be fair, Madam Chairman. No update. Just for clarity.
Thank you. Councillor Rogers.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, obviously these next few items have come because it's councillor land, and I'm happy to go with officers' recommendations and move approval.
Thank you, Councillor Rogers. Councillor Winter.
Seconded.
One at once, please. One at once, please, Councillor Rogers. Anything else to be said on this one? No. Okay, we'll go to the vote. Thank you.
Okay, so it's been proposed and seconded to approve this application as per the officer's recommendation, along with the conditions as set out within the officer's report. All those in favour to approve this proposal, please raise your hand. And that's unanimous approved.
That application is approved. Thank you. So item 8, this is display of 50 non-illuminated sponsor boards around the football pitch at Cemetery Lane, Driffield. Again, an application. Is there any update?
No updates, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. Another council application here. So Councillor Lee.
I had a prepared talk of about 45 minutes on the on the merits of the football, but obviously the application is for that very well worth organisation in terms of the Driffield Football Club, and I think it's a good application. I have no hesitation in recommending approval.
Thank you, Councillor Lee. Councillor Rogers.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I agree with what Councillor Lee's just said. That area is subject to a huge amount of building, as Homes England have just purchased the remaining land around the top. So we fully support any development of the recreational land around that area, but anywhere in Driffield. So I'm happy to second approval.
Thank you, Councillor Rogers. No one else wishing to comment, then can we go to the vote?
It's been proposed and seconded to approve the application as per the officer's recommendation, along with the conditions as set out within the officer's report. All those in favour of this proposal to approve this application, raise your hands. And that's unanimous.
The application is approved. And just for any listeners that might still be there, we do pay good attention to these applications. They're not automatically approved just because they are council ones. We give them the same diligent scrutiny as we do for any other application. We'll go on to item 8, which is item 9. Donate 9, which is sighting of 2 ball stop nets at Cemetery Lane playing fields, Driffield. Any updates on that?
No updates, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Lee. Oh, sorry, Councillor Rogers.
No, I'm happy to defer to my ward colleague on this one.
No, exactly the same as last time. It's the same area, same comments apply. So I'll happily move approval.
Councillor Lee.
And I'm not sure I'm allowed to say ditto, but yes, that's broadly the same. But it's, you know, as my colleague said, it's an exceptionally, sensible application, and I'm very happy to support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lee. Councillor Heslop-Millins, you wanted to?
I just wanted to vote.
Okay, we'll go to the vote then, please.
Proposed and seconded to approve the application as per the officer recommendation with the conditions as set out in the report. All those in favour of this proposal, please raise your hands. And that's unanimous approved.
That's approved, thank you. And sighting of 2 ball stop nets in the same, no. Right, erection of 4 dwellings for affordable housing at land east of Adult Learning Centre, Bedden Road, Beverley. Any updates?
No updates, Madam Chairman.
Councillor Healy.
Thank you, Chair. This is my ward. Yeah, I support this. This Bedden Road is a sustainable location. And what you've got there is the Adult Learning Centre, and you've got some houses the other side of it, and you have a gap. And that is an area of grassland at the moment. I honestly don't know to what extent it's used by, kids or whatever to play football or have recreation. But there haven't been any representations made about this planning application that it shouldn't go ahead. I've certainly not received any objections to it. The principle of affordable housing in a location like this is desirable. This is an area of generally affordable housing around it. And I think that these dwellings that have been proposed do fit in with this locality and the amenity generally. So I'd like to move approval.
Thank you, councillor Healy. Councillor Rogers.
Thank you, Chair. Can I just ask a question? The Burden Road Centre, I've spent an hour down there when I worked at Longcroft School with some of our outreach kids. Am I right in thinking, and I've slept since it happened, but that no longer takes place down there, does it? It is just adult learning. There's no, the children's centre doesn't operate anymore. The only reason I ask is because when we used to work down there, the kids did used to go out and play football somewhere around there at the break times. So I just wanted some confirmation. Is it just adult learning now that takes place at that site?
To be honest, I'm not 100% sure. It is addressed as the adult learning centre, but I can't honestly say hand on heart that nothing else happens there if it's needed. So I'm not 100% sure. I'm afraid it's kind of not really within our knowledge.
No, that's fine. I'm happy to move second approval. Yeah.
Thank you, councillor Rogers. No one else wishing to speak. What I do know is for affordable homes, they look to have decent sized gardens, which is nice, isn't it? And looking onto a field.
Just a comment, just to respond to Councillor Rogers. There is quite a few other areas of open space close here. So if there were, then I think it would be well met. The other final point just to be clear, is that although the application is described as affordable housing, it is in a location that's sustainable for market housing. There's no policy requirement for this to be delivered as affordable. So whilst we know the council intends to, there isn't actually any restriction on it becoming market housing if that's how it went forward. So just so members are clear, the applicant is described this as affordable housing, but there won't be any planning restriction or condition making sure it is affordable housing, because it's equally acceptable as market or affordable homes, just to be clear.
Thank you. Are you happy with that, councillor Healy?
Yeah, just to pick up the point there on the open space, there is at the other end of Burden Road, Mud Hills, which is a nice area of open land. And actually, I believe that planning application was put forward but withdrawn 2 or 3 years ago for some development on there. This particular one, it's just like an infill. It's almost not big enough to kick a football too much, to be honest. So I'm not sure that it is getting great use anyway, but there is definitely open space at the other end of Burden Road for the kids to go on.
Thank you, councillor Healy. So no one further to speak. We have moved and seconded for approval.
Yeah, proposed and seconded to approve as per the officer recommendation with the conditions as set out within the officer's report. All those in favour of this proposal, please raise your hand. And that's unanimous, approved.
That's approved, thank you. And we just have the appeal decisions.
Yeah. So yeah, we just have one appeal today to report page 173, item 12. This is an application. It was determined under delegated powers, so it didn't come before committee. This was a retrospective application, and it was also a resubmitted application for the change of use of an existing outbuilding to B8 Class E storage use, and also the change of use of land for siting of 2 units for Class E office and B8 storage use. This is all in connection with a sort of cleaning company. They do industrial type cleaning. This was the base for the company. It's seemingly something that's grown up from somebody who worked from home, and then obviously set up a rather much bigger company and took over land next door that was previously agricultural, but then cleared and then sited some units on the land for this purpose. So there was a previous application had been refused, but not appealed. This application was a resubmission with further supporting information. This application was refused again, and the reason really, there's one reason for refusal, which is relation to the location of the site and whether that was sustainable for a new business. We haven't got a scenario here where we were reusing agricultural buildings or bringing other sustainability benefits. This was wholly really not supported in policy as a new enterprise on otherwise sort of undeveloped land. So The inspector agreed with the reason for refusal, that the site was unsustainable, that all of the traffic would be coming out here just to service this business, and that wasn't in line with the local plan or national policy objectives about where we site new developments. So has been refused, and obviously to follow will be enforcement action, because obviously this is existing already. So we'll obviously be talking to them about trying to help them relocate to keep the business, but obviously in a different, more sustainable location, a more suitable location.
Thank you for that. So, any comments on that? No. In that case, site visit we need to arrange.
Sorry, I've just finished this meeting.
Okay.
Bear with me.
Morley Cross is quite a drive out, so it's not the same day thing, is it? I don't think it's